Okay, well, it's 7:05 on Central Standard Time, which is my time. And I know it is much later in your time zone, Tasha. So we are going to be being cognizant of your time and also everyone who has come. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. So I want to start off by saying that I welcome you and I thank you. Thank everyone who's here for taking the moment to pause and just make time to pour into yourself. We have about 20 people who registered for today, so I anticipate some additional people will be joining us. But you're here for the best part of it, and that's the beginning where we sip together. We start with a brief meditation. We start with a little bit of an affirmation as we get started for our time today. So I'm going to totally turn off my sound here on this music, and I am going to get us started with an opening affirmation. So today's affirmation is I am grounded, I am worthy, and I am whole. Oh, just take that in. I am grounded, I am worthy, and I am whole. And so this affirmation speaks to our root chakra. For those of you all who are aware of the chakras that are in our body and flow through our meridian line. So, to speak to that, I'll tell you a little bit more about that today because I'm actually sipping on a root chakra tea that is by Buddha Blends. So, I'll share that a little bit with you all later. So, to help us get settled in and to help us to get grounded, I am going to lead us through a little bit of a body scan, and then I'll go ahead and start with some introductions so that you know a little bit about who we are and start a little bit with the topic today, just talking a little bit about that. So, the body scan, I want you to, or I invite you to, go ahead and close your eyes if that feels comfortable. If that doesn't feel comfortable or safe, to go ahead and just lower your gaze. Do whatever feels comfortable for you. And I'm going to invite you to join me in 3 collective breaths before we go ahead and get into our body scan. And so when I say 3 collective breaths, I'm encouraging us to take a breath in through our nose and exhale through our mouth and just kind of just let that out as you are exhaling. So we'll start with the first one. It'll be in through our nose and out through our mouth. And just allow yourself to soften with each breath. Let your jaw loosen. Let your let your eyes just kind of relax. Let your forehead soften. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out. Just totally allowing yourself to empty and let go of whatever happened before you turned on to the Zoom today. Anything that is not serving you, anything that is weighing on your heart and on your mind, to just allow that to go. And so for our third collective breath, we're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth. Letting go of any expectations, letting go of any pressure to perform or to be on, letting go of any feelings of unworthiness or any feelings of I'm not able to forgive myself for something. We're letting that go and allowing ourselves to just sit in the moment of being and just this presence. So just allowing ourselves to take in our wholeness, our fullness, because sis, you are worthy. We're going to go ahead and start with that body scan, and keep your eyes closed if that feels comfortable or safe. We're going to start at the top of our head, so our crown, and we're going to just do a mental scan, working our way from the top of our head all the way down to our toes. And if there's any tension, maybe if you need to move that, like I feel a little tension in my shoulders, so I'm going to rotate them a little bit. And we're just doing a mental check. Where's my body holding any tension? What do I need to release today? What do I need to soften? Just taking a moment. You can acknowledge where the area is. And like I said, if you need to rotate or move any or wiggle any toes or whatever you need to do, maybe address it for a moment. And made it all the way down to my toes. And I'm going to do a little wiggle. And then I'm going to ask you to join me in a final breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And just when you're ready, bring your eyes back to the screen. I hope that was relaxing for you. And I hope you were able to really take that pause and embrace it for yourself. So we are sipping on our tea today and doing our conversation, focusing on being worthy and whole. That is the theme of our conversation today. And a sacred return to self through softness, through strength, and the soulful restoration. So as we get started, I want you to think about, what does it mean to be restored, to be recharged? What does it mean to be worthy? And what does it mean to feel whole? And I just want you to take that in and consider that for today. I'm Toyia Peters. I am your host for today, and I have my co-host here, Tasha, Patton Smith. We are both licensed clinical social workers. So much so, we've known one another quite a bit of time. We actually attended grad school together. And so we both have our masters in social work and have been working in the field of social work for a very long time. We've both worked in schools and then in private practice. So we have quite a bit of experience, years of experience in the area of social work. But as it relates to me being the owner of Restore Her Wellness, my platform is all about women, and women being unapologetic about their self-care, and understanding that, as Black women particularly, we tend to carry a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility, and we don't often take time to take care of ourselves for whatever that is that we need. And so this is your time today to pause and just take care of yourself for this 45 minutes or so, and just allow yourself to sink, to join in the conversation and be present. That's, you showed up today, you showed up for yourself, and you are invited to participate in the conversation in any way in which you feel. There is a chat box in the bottom, so feel free to, join in the chat. If you would like to add something and you want to come on screen, just raise your hand and let us know, and we will bring you into the conversation. Tasha, is there anything you'd like to say as we start the conversation for today?
I'd like to say thank you for inviting me to be your co-host. We have gone back a long way. We worked together
Mhm.
and went to grad school together, and we have remained good friends, even though I left Chicago in 2004. We've remained great friends.
Mhm.
And so I'm very proud of you for the work that you're doing and how far that you've come from where we were when we worked in child welfare together. So, and and I love you.
Of you as well. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for saying that.
And hi to my friends that have joined. Thank you for supporting me, ladies. I love you too.
Yes. Thank you, everyone who's here. So, like I said, everyone's welcome to join in the conversation in whichever way feels comfortable for you. We have a hi here. Tiffany is saying hi. So thank you, Tiffany. Um, and so we are going to go ahead and start first with a mindful sip of our tea. So I shared with you that I am drinking a root chakra tea. So this is Buddha tea, and this is a root chakra tea. So our root chakra is at the base of our spine, and so we this is where we often feel the most grounded. So I am drinking the root chakra tea because I want to feel grounded. So the tea is talking, it shares that this is for security and stability, and so it has hibiscus in it, it has raspberry leaf in it, dandelion roots, ashwagandha, which is really good for any ladies who are in menopause. And it is very flavorful. So if you have had a chance to go ahead and get your tea and to or your drink of choice, I invite you to take a sip with me. So we'll take a sip with just uh, as you lift it up to your mouth. I encourage you to first just identify maybe or take a minute to see if you can smell some of the aroma of the tea. You know, for you, I don't know what teas you have, but what aromas do you smell as you're drinking your tea? And then taking a mindful sip, how does it feel as it goes down your throat? How does it feel as it enters your chest? I love the warmth of the tea just in my hands. So I use tea as a way to pause and to be mindful and just allow myself to be in the moment, to be present. And so that is one of the wonderful things that I love about tea because it just warms my spirit, but it also it gives me permission to pause. Tasha, what are you drinking today?
I am rehydrating with water.
Mm-hmm.
I have been going and not a lot, not hydrating myself the way I should today. So I'm opting for water. But even with that, I'm able to pay attention to the coolness of the water as it goes down into my mouth, down my throat, and into my stomach. And it's refreshing. It's like, girl, what you've been doing all day? You've been dehydrating us around here in this hot North Carolina sun without enough water.
Yes. Yeah, and this is so important, you know, especially you're in the southern area. We're here in the Midwest, but it is summertime and the heat is real, and so we
Yeah.
have to make sure that we're staying hydrated and taking care of ourselves. It's so important, even just as we are thinking about the idea that we need to continuously flush and detox. And so water serves that purpose, so it's so important that we get that water in our system because we need it
Yeah,
to flush out the toxins and all the things that we're taking into our body and into our soul.
absolutely. But never fail. I'll have my chamomile tea tonight in my sip and savor cup. Allow myself to, it'll help me to wind down and go to sleep after a very hectic 72 hours.
Yeah, so yeah, we were talking and you have had a busy day, a busy
Yeah.
weekend. So yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start kind of talking a little bit about our topic of today. Um, and that is worthiness. So I do have a couple little talking points that I want to share as we get started to kind of help us get grounded in our conversation for today. So I'll share that worthiness is not earned, it is remembered. So we were born worthy. And so the idea that we were born worthy, but sometimes life gets the best of us and we come across situations or experiences where we start to question our worthiness. We start to question, our wholeness. And this is just the opportunity to return to that sacred self, because and remember that you are worthy. Wholeness means honoring all parts of yourself, healed, healing, soft, and strong. As Black women, we are often praised for enduring. So society loves to, continue to put more on us. We put more on ourselves, and we've been known to be the strong women who endure. But sometimes we want to just be soft, or we want to just rest, and we want to just relax and restore ourselves. So tonight we honor ourselves for softness. Returning to self is sacred work through boundaries, self trust, and rest. You are not broken. You may be in the process, but you are already whole. So just take that in. You are not broken. You may be in the process of healing, but you're already whole. And so I just want you to remember that. So, Tasha, I do have some questions, some poignant questions for us. Is there anything you want to add before we go ahead and get into some of the questions or the discussion for today about wholeness or about being worthy or even just, life situations that have maybe maybe led you to question any of your wholeness or worthiness?
Um, I do want to add in turn with regards to being whole and knowing that you're worthy, a good part of that is accepting your flaws and moving away from the idea of perfection. The things that I tell my friends and my clients, one of the main things I tell them is that we are striving for progress and not perfection because we're going to continuously grow. We're going to continuously make ourselves over. There isn't a one Tasha Smith.
Mm-hmm.
As I grow, I'm going to get better. And so who I was last month is not who I am today. And so being able to accept that helps me to understand that being whole is not the same as having this whole cup. For human beings, it's a lot different. It's accepting all of who you are. And that includes accepting your flaws and not trying to fix all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, and life definitely has taught me that. And the people that I have around me, that I've had around me, have helped me to come to that conclusion about myself. I'm enough and I don't have to be everything for everybody. So I'm a social worker, right? And you know me, I want to be everything for everybody, but I can't be. And one of the things that I learned many years ago that helped me along the way is that I cannot be the Holy Spirit for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I do what I'm called to do and be okay when when I have to step back.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take away from who I am as a human being, even if I don't get to what I would have considered the resolution.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about, you know, we said life calls us in different ways and pulls us in different directions. And a lot of times I am working, even just through my own life, but I'm also working with people who have experienced some really difficult times. So that maybe some trauma has occurred, and I would really say that it's hard to live a life where you don't experience any trauma. Um,
Right.
you know, uh, and we've had trauma, we've had losses, and a lot of what is happening, it just leaves us feeling depleted. It just leaves us feeling not whole. How do you encourage clients, that you're working with, to work through that, when they are dealing with some of these life challenges, they've experienced some significant trauma. So there's so many different degrees of trauma, but when,
Yes.
and some try, and each person's perception of their experience plays a role into their trauma and what actually occurs. But how do you work with people, or how do you work with, move yourself through some of those challenges when there's been like a loss or there's been some major trauma? How do you work with that?
Well, for me and how I work with it for myself is that I allow myself to sit in it for a little bit to understand it, to process it, to try and figure it out. Um, and if I can't figure it out, then I help myself to move forward. I pray. I pray a lot. And so when I have gone through losses in my life, I've allowed myself to cry and be okay with crying. I encourage my clients to cry. I get so many people to come and sit on my virtual sofa in my office and say, I'm not going to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are. And it's okay. And what is the purpose of not crying?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't demonstrate strength the way we were taught that it does, but it is a release. We were doing the meditations. I liken crying um, to how the release that we get when we meditate. And when you're done crying, you can think more clearly. Um, when I'm working with clients, and many of my clients do come with a tremendous amount of trauma, things that they don't even recognize as trauma until they start really digging through it. Because one of the main definitions of trauma is how you perceive a situation, how you perceive stress in your life, and the impact that it has on you. So, for those that know in the beginning and those that come along and after some time and recognize situations that they've had in their lives to be traumatic, some of the things that I teach them is to accept what happened, understand that by and large, things that happened to them were not their fault, and that they often wouldn't have been able to control the narrative. And that takes a lot to do to getting fired from a job.
Mm-hmm.
People walk away feeling like one or two ways: either A, it wasn't their fault and they won't take any responsibility, or it was all their fault and they want to take all their responsibility. So learning how to recognize, okay, maybe there were some things that I should have done differently, but whether or not they should have gotten fired, unless it was something very egregious, it's not something that they can necessarily worry about. And sometimes God closes doors and sometimes he has to push us out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning to look themselves in the mirror every day and say, hey, there's another door opening for me. This doesn't take away from who I am. This doesn't take away from what I know. This doesn't take away from my years of experience. And I can still do what I know how to do. It just means I can't do it at that place. And that's just one thing. I mean, I can go on and get deeper, but I don't think we got that kind of time.
Well, I was thinking what when you were talking, one of the things that resonated with me was you were talking about how we tend to take on, we want to hold ourselves responsible for all of it. So there's often a lot of guilt, a lot
Yes,
of self-blame in
yes,
that people experience with, certain situations. And sometimes the trauma that has occurred, you had no control over
right,
the situation or that occurred at all. You had no hands in it, and so we're taking on blame. We're trying to put blame on ourselves that isn't ours to carry, and
right,
so the big part of that is how do we not carry the weight of what has occurred to us, because we are not the sum of the thing that occurred. We
right.
are trying to move forward and to allow ourselves some forgiveness. I think one of the things that I notice that people have the most difficult time with is that forgiveness. you
Mhm.
know and as we all know, we know the saying, right, that forgiveness is not for the other person, it is
Right.
often for ourselves, but still not really being able to allow ourselves to sit with forgiveness for ourselves. We are much quicker to sometimes give grace and forgiveness to others, but we want to hold ourselves hostage. Why do you think that is? What do you think that's the case?
I think part of it is because, again, like I said, perfectionism, wanting to feel like you should have seen it, you
Mm-hmm.
should have known it. Another part of it is when we are, say, for example, you are in a bad relationship
Mm-hmm.
and your spouse is not faithful,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that, comes through quite often. We want to, figure out what we could have done differently, what part we played in the person going out and doing whatever it is that they did. And it's easier to blame ourselves and then not forgive ourselves for being in that position in the first place. When, like you just said, a lot of it is outside of your control. I teach my clients and I guide them through learning to understand that when it comes to relationships, it doesn't have to be romantic relationships, but relationships in general that go astray. And when it breaks down, it's absolutely important to figure out your part in the breakdown of the relationship, but understand that you have no control over the actions or the person's response. Um, you have control over your response, and your job is to not allow your response to be a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking a step back and thinking about it. When it comes to forgiveness, I spend a lot of sessions with people, helping them understand what it is, helping them understand that it's not for the other person, helping those that are believers understand that forgiveness comes when you recognize how God forgives you on each and every day. For those that aren't believers, helping them recognize that they want to be forgiven by others, and that we can spend our whole lives mad at somebody for something they did to us, and they will move on. And when we see them, we'll get mad because they're moving on, and understanding that even if we get an apology, it's not going to erase the hurt. So that takes work on our part.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, one, acknowledge that something has happened. Two, acknowledge that we couldn't control the other person's actions. We can only control our response. And three, acknowledge that forgiveness doesn't mean traveling in the same circle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an acknowledgement that somebody did something to you, it hurt you, and you no longer want to hurt. They may never change. You have to forgive people, even if they never apologize, because it's a way to release that bitterness and that hurt. And a friend of mine said, you got to ask God to to search your heart and cut out that bitter root. That sounds painful, but when you think about a garden, you cut out the weeds, you pull those roots up, you cut off the dead limbs. If a root is rotting, you cut it out, and then the garden flourishes. We have to think about ourselves the same way. We have to cut out those things that are slowly killing us on the inside because we only get one life.
Mm-hmm.
And if we spend a lot of it angry at other people, or whenever you bring up somebody's name, our bodies go red hot and stream of curse words come out, that doesn't help us. And
Yeah.
it frames how we think about other people, even people who don't hurt us. And if we don't learn to let go, then none of our other relationships have a real chance at surviving. And I'm talking friendships, relationships with family, relationships with coworkers, because everywhere we go, we're going to leave some of that bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent quite a bit of time on working on how to even begin to understand forgiveness, because when somebody tells you forgive and forget, no, you don't have to forget. It's for you, it's not for the other person. Okay, but how is it for me?
Mm-hmm.
We have to work on the how, not necessarily the why, but how is it for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Just even that last part that you brought up several good points. One being, how when we don't allow or bring in forgiveness for ourselves, how we are leaving or starting that relationship, any new relationships, any relationships that we want to foster and to grow and develop, that we're not really fully allowing the fullness of those relationships to occur because we are still kind of harboring some of the hurt or the pain or the bitterness that we have carried with us, and we're depositing that into that relationship, and that may not be our intentions, and we may not even always be aware that we're showing up in that way, but
Right.
we are, but the other person sometimes is sensing that, right? They're sensing you're not letting me in. They're sensing that you are guarded. They're sensing that um, I my intentions that I'm coming with are pure, but you are thinking that I am out to get you, or I'm here to attack you, or something of that nature. And that may not necessarily be the case. Yes, we have to be cautious, of people, because
Mhm.
people's intentions and other people are coming in with their own potential hurt and pain as well. But we want to also make sure that we are leaving the door open for the fullness of whatever those relationships are going to be or could be.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's also, really hard when some of the hurt or some of the pain that has been caused stems from childhood and stems
Yeah.
from the people who are supposed to be the nurturers, the caregivers, the caretakers, and how they didn't show up for you in the way that you wanted them to, or they didn't show up for you in the way that you needed them to, or they just didn't show up, period, because they were unavailable, for whatever reason, or they didn't show up because they were hurt.
Right. And they didn't know. And so the other thing I wanted to say about forgiveness is trust. When you don't forgive a person, it's hard for you to trust anybody else completely.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to your point that no other relationship will be able to flourish fully
Mm-hmm.
because you don't trust the person. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop, literally, to see when that real person comes out. And it may not be that way. So then we begin to, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We begin to create the situation that we didn't want to have created and to have it happen to us. But speaking about childhood, I think that for many of us, that's where our worthiness comes. If you have parents that are not available, whether they are not there or they spent, all your time, your childhood working to provide for you, or you were a victim of abuse of any kind, emotional or physical, um, your foundation for wholeness is not completely there. And so we oftentimes start to seek it intentionally and unintentionally in other places. And if those places are not worthy, if they are not safe places, then not only do you not get the wholeness that you're seeking and that sense of worthiness that you're seeking, what little you have is taken away from you. So for that leads me to my point of who you have around you and who and what you engage in also is crucial when we're thinking about how we develop worthiness and how we understand that we're whole. If
Mhm.
we're constantly giving ourselves to people and we are only taking on their weight, but we can't give any weight, then we feel like nobody wants to know what I'm going through. Nobody wants to hear what is going on with me over and over again. And then that leads to self doubt. And then it leads to, well, am I a good friend? That's another way of questioning your worth.
Mhm.
You know, am I enough?
Mhm.
And you have to have people that feed into you, that tell you, just show up at your door on your birthday with a plaque that says you are enough, and a mirror that and with the note saying, look at this every morning and say this attribute.
Mhm.
You are enough.
Yeah. Um, I want to deviate just a little bit from the self-forgiveness,
Mhm.
and talk a little bit about we care as women, as Black women, or just women in general. We often carry a lot of roles and a lot of titles, and so
Yeah.
that's that expectation. When I was saying earlier, let go of some of the expectation. I found that sometimes when I ask people to tell me who they are, they can't tell me who they are beyond the titles that they have. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mother. Well, you're more than a mother. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
wife. Well, you're more than a wife. And what tell me about your experience as it relates to working with women who are in that same situation, who aren't able to identify, you know, I'm more than this. I'm more than this title that I have. I'm more than this job title or this title in life, this wife, mother. And I'm going to say that because initially I remember when I got married, and I'll just take this as personal moment to talk about myself. I remember when I got married, and we got married around the same time. So that was so coincidental. We were in grad school, we got married around the same time, all those things. And it was such a life transition for me because, I became Leroy's wife. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I'm Toyia, and so I found myself trying to then also live up to this expectation of what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And I was really stuck in that space of, I need to find a way to make sure that I'm maintaining my identity because I am more than this thing, and I was even just before we got here today, I was having a conversation with someone. I'm part of a sorority, and we were talking a little bit about, how people often identify someone as this is the identifier, so and so who's part of that sorority, and it's like, no, I am a person with or without that. So
Mm-hmm.
tell me a little bit about that because I think that also plays a role into when that role is gone. Like if you're a wife and you get a divorce, or your spouse becomes deceased, or if you lose a particular job and you can't stay in that same particular job title, or your income changes, how we really attach ourselves to those titles, and then we think that when we don't have that anymore, that we're not enough. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, because I have a bunch of titles. Um, I well, for me, I'm a wife. We did get married, right, one right behind the other. So you
Mhm.
just celebrated an anniversary. I'll be celebrating one in a few weeks. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I am a Christian. I am a social worker. I'm a therapist. I'm a public speaker now, and I'm an author. I have all of those things. And for the longest time, each and every one of them defined me to the point of angst.
Mhm.
And I had to ask myself, well, what happens when you get tired of being a wife?
Mhm.
Well, according to the word, I go take a nap and I wake up. Well, that's not in the word, but you know, to death do us part. So I go and I take a break. What happens when you get tired of being a mother? I lock my bedroom door. What happens when you get tired of being a social worker? I take a few days off. You know, and I say all that to say that they're not always just titles. In some places, they're ways of life. But if all of that goes away, you have to just know that you're who God created you to be. I'm Tasha. I'm me. Who are you? I'm me. I could never answer that question outside of I'm me, whoever I want to be on any given day. If I want to be your mom, yeah, I'm your mom, but I don't have to act like that today. Today, I'm just going to be Tasha.
Mhm.
And so don't call me. And sometimes I would tell my kids, it's like, who are you? You're my mom. No, that's my title. But I'm a human being that loves you, that cares for you. My husband, I'm your wife. That's my title. I was telling somebody yesterday as I was being introduced, this is Tasha, this is Corey's wife. And so when I'm at church and I introduce myself, I say I'm Deacon Corey's wife. And when I'm at school, my kids were in school, I was Justin's mom, Amari's mom, CJ's mom. I have a lot of kids, y'all. So that was just three of them. Um, but when I'm me. I don't have I describe myself by my attributes, if that answers your question. I am loving and kind. I like to serve,
Mhm.
and I can do that with all of those titles.
Mhm.
And that's how I help my clients. You don't, when your kids grow up, what are you going to do? Who do you want to be? What type of person are you? What makes you a great mom? What makes you a great wife? What makes you a great friend? Understand who your attributes are, well, what your attributes are, and not that way when your job and role changes. I have a friend on here who retired and she's living her best retired life. She is, I'm going to describe her by one of her titles, one of your sorority sisters.
Okay.
But I took a lot from her and just, she'll tell me in a minute, Tasha Smith, you take care of you. You don't let those children bother you. You take care of yourself because if you give them everything you got, what do you have left?
Mhm.
And so it goes back to who you have and put your oxygen mask on first. She's in the chat. And I have another friend. She's the one that brought me the mirror and said that you are enough.
Mhm.
And I remember one day she told me I was texting her about something and I was going hard. You know me. And she called me. She said, sis, you ever thought that maybe God doesn't need you boots on the ground all the time? Maybe you need to put your boots down and get on your knees.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is those things that help me redefine who I am, that I am tough, but I'm also tender.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to let that show. So I describe myself with my attributes now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it too, to look at your attributes. I think so many times too we get caught in these roles and we don't honor or flourish, foster the parts of us that are seeking growth. You know, what are some new, things that you want to explore? What are some things that you want to do? You know, you could say, I'm the adventurer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I am the gardener, because a lot of times these roles take so much out of us that we don't even have time to really explore who we are, and we lose ourselves
Yeah.
in that,
Mm-hmm.
and so we want to make sure that we allow ourselves time to foster
Yeah.
some of the things about us that we are that our interests,
Right.
our creative nature, spirit, all these other things as well, so not only looking at our attributes, but then also taking some time to foster these other
Yeah.
areas of ourselves which we might be neglecting sometimes, which make us feel like we're in a box, and so it makes us feel like we're not enough because
Yes.
it feels monotonous, that we're
Mm-hmm.
going through life just doing the same old thing and carrying the same old weight. Whereas we need to, find ways to break through the monotony and just kind of experience things and explore things.
You are you are right. I want to touch to that because you said I am the gardener. Girl, if I didn't try and actually plant some flowers, and I got some tomatoes growing.
All right.
So, but even just in that, learning that I can do something different and learning to enjoy it. Um, Earlier this year, I had a very major surgery, and God provided for me. He it changed my life. It changed how I view things. And so it kind of ushered me into that space of what am I not enjoying? Who am I without all of my titles?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do I want to spend the rest of my life? And so as we talk about, being whole and worthy and how we connect and respond to trauma and how we connect to others and how we forgive and forgiving ourselves, um, for me, the next question was, well, what do you want to do next? Just like you asked, well, what do you want to do next? Well, I no longer want to skydive, but if I had to jump out of a plane, I think I could. Um, But I heard this, well, saw this video clip with Marlon Wayans, and I'm sure everybody has seen it, where they were asking him about his relationships and I guess the demise of his marriage. But he said he is 52 years old. He was when he made this video, did this interview. And if God gave him 20 more years, that means he still has more time behind him than he does ahead of him. And all he wanted to do is smile.
Mm-hmm.
That hit my heart so, and I'm like, I'm 51. All I want to do is smile.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my goal every day. No matter what hits me, I want to smile. And when I smile and I look myself in the mirror, like, you got this. No matter what, if it's falling apart, if there's chaos all around me, I'm going to smile because just like I know, teaching people how to, and yes, we're therapists, but in that we don't tell them what to do, we help them learn. So we're teaching them in a way, teaching them how to have a different perspective, how to reach for what's positive and what's beautiful goes a long way with helping them to feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so In everything, remember to smile.
Yeah. Yeah. Smiling is so important. We have a few comments here in the chat. So we have, you were talking earlier, and Saritha said that that was such a great perspective. And so she shared something that she felt was a really great perspective. Sharita said, this was so me. Wow. Thank you for unpacking this. So she, she's able to say that. And then Saritha just said, Amen. So she is so what you're saying is really resonating with her quite a bit. Um, you mentioned earlier about perfectionism. Um, and this doesn't just have to relate to perfectionism because it can also relate to the opposite of that. I often think we keep some of these negative headphones on,
Mhm.
um, and we are playing that to ourselves over and over and over and over and over again. Um, and those headphones are talking about how much we feel like we're not worthy, how much we feel like we are, not living up to our expectations or messing up or all those different things. And it's that negative self-talk
Mhm.
that has us further feeling like we're not enough,
Right.
we're not whole, like we aren't, you know, a good person sometimes, or that we deserve good things, and so I want to spend a moment just talking about that negative self-talk. I tell clients a lot of times we're talking about, changing the narrative that you tell
Mhm.
yourself every day, and how important that is to you feeling worthy, or how important that is to you feeling whole. But can you talk a little bit about that? Sharita is just saying what she says, the negative self-talk removes the attributes. Exactly, it does.
That- Absolutely, Sharita, it does. So, what we feed ourselves determines how our brain develops. And so, society says if you don't reach this, if you don't do this, then you're not this, or you need to have all these things, or you are not, you have to look a certain way to be beautiful. You have to have so many degrees to be smart. And none of those things are true. If these are the things that you want, if you want, like I have my master's, you have your master's. I told myself when I get my two boys out of school, I was going to go back and get my PhD. Well, I got to 2026 to figure that out. I don't know if I want to or not. And if I don't, so be it. But that's what I wanted to do. And I did it by and large because society said so. But me being a social worker is because it fit into what I truly wanted to do in life, which was be a therapist. And I finally got here. We've been through the trenches, but we have all the experience behind us now. But it is, what was your question? I went all over
Well, it was more about the negative
the negative self-talk.
mhm.
So what we feed our brains, like I said, determines how we think. It determines how it develops. We can build new neural pathways. If everything we think about is negative, it distorts our view of the world. But if we learn to feed more positivity into ourselves, no, you didn't get that job, but that's not the job for you. You still got skills. No, your marriage didn't work, but guess what? You're not a bad person, and hopefully he wasn't either. But even if he was, he's no longer your problem. That's that positive self-talk. It gets rid of, well, what could I have done I did the best I can. Just that switch can change things for a person. Your child goes off and gets into some type of trouble. Oh, you're a bad parent. That's what society is going to say. But if you fed into that child everything you had, even if it wasn't perfect, I did the best that I could. I gave a lot of good stuff. I wasn't perfect with it, but I gave a lot of good stuff. So learning that in situations, you can either look at the negative and disqualify the positive, or you can choose to acknowledge the negative, but move toward that positive, not only qualify it, but embrace it. Because what you consistently think is going to determine how you act, it's going to determine what you say, it's going to determine the people you're going to be around. So it all starts with the mind.
Mhm.
Before anything ever comes out of the mouth, before any action is ever done, it's what you think about yourself. If you think you ugly, you're not going to do anything to help yourself feel pretty until you recognize that ugliness is only going to describe the inside. It doesn't do well with describing the outside because we're all beautiful. If you think that you'll never lose weight, you're going to continue to eat the foods that are going to make sure you don't lose weight. If you think that you have to walk a mile in order to have exercise, you won't walk around the block.
Mhm.
And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna walk a mile, but I'm gonna start with walking around the block. I'm beautiful. I don't care what other people think of me. I don't have to be. I think one of the things that when we talk about negative self-talk goes back to why why some of us feel like we're not beautiful unless our hair looks a certain way,
Mhm.
or if unless we're a certain size.
Mhm.
And if you don't love yourself thin, you're not going to love yourself heavy. If you don't love yourself heavy, you're not going to love yourself thin. If you are brown complected and you want to be light, you're not going to love yourself anymore if you go through all of the treatments to become lighter. It starts on what you think of yourself. It starts on what you tell yourself. Like I have many of my female clients come in down on themselves. Their very first homework assignment is to get journals, to get pretty pens, to get sticky notes. What am I going to do with all of this? The first thing you're going to do is use those pretty pens to write on those sticky notes. I am beautiful. I'm going to pass this exam. I'm not going to let my kids stress me out. I'm going to get off duty at 9 o'clock. And you're going to stick them everywhere you can see them. When I put my feet on the ground, I'm going to do the best I can. And it might look different today than it did yesterday. And you're going to remind yourself of that. And as we do that, we begin to be better. We begin to feel better. We hold our heads up, our shoulders back. We associate with people who are going to feed into that. And we're going to feed those things into other people.
Mhm.
It's like if we do the negativity is like mold. If you all you gotta do is give it a little bit of moisture and it spreads.
Yeah.
Negativity, all it needs is just one negative word and it grows into a whole novel.
Mhm.
It's harder to write a positive outcome.
Yeah, it is. Takes more work and it is harder. And the more that as you were talking, the other thing I was thinking about, the more that we compare ourselves, you know, I often tell people that comparison is a stiller of joy. So if we are comparing ourselves, well, this person has more of this, or they look better in this, or they, have that, then, and we use that to guide who we're supposed to be, then we never really get a chance to focus on all the positive attributes that we have because we're always looking outside and we're never looking internally about what am I bringing to the table that makes me this good person, because everyone is good. Everyone has good inside of them. We just have to nurture that and cultivate it. And if we're always looking out, we don't have time to do that. We don't
If
spend time doing that.
if we're always looking out, we'll never be forward in.
Mm-hmm.
If we are always looking at what the next person has and we work to accumulate those same things, if that's our motivation, we'll end up with a house and life full of things that we never really wanted in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it is being able to look at someone and, we're going to all compare, but at the end of every comparison, It's got to be good for, I'm glad that happened for them. You know, we can learn in comparison, but it shouldn't define who we are, because if we allow it to define who we are, at the end of the day, we won't be able to answer that question, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
We met and became friends because we were following, we were automatically just going on the same path.
Mm-hmm.
But never was it, oh, I'm gonna go and be a social worker because you're gonna be we were already social workers when we met. And
Mm-hmm.
we both decided we wanted to go back to school. And
Right.
so we cheered each other on, like, look, we're not doing this for the rest of our life. So let's go, girl.
Right. Let's
That's what
go.
we did. We supported each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we compare ourselves to other people, we're doing a disservice to ourselves because we're not allowing our uniqueness to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
And you were uniquely made.
absolutely.
You are not
God did
supposed to.
not make two of us the same.
Right.
Even we're identical, I know some identical twins. I know one in particular. They look exactly alike, but there are some real differences that make them uniquely themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a couple comments here. Sandra said, she said, speak to yourself the way you would speak to others. And then Sharita said, if with regards to the comparison, that also applies to comparing us to the old version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We're thinking we're supposed to say, stay the way that we were. You're supposed to grow. That is the whole
The
point.
whole purpose of being alive.
You are supposed to grow. And so the person you once were, because I can tell you for sure, I am not the person that I once was. And I think that that is actually what called me into this profession, right? Because of the need to grow and wanting to grow. We are human beings, as you said earlier, Tasha. And so the old version of us, right, might have been through some things, and the new version has been through some things too, because we don't like lose the things because you're growing. It
Mhm.
just allows you to embrace wisdom, embrace courage, embrace strength, because you have evolved, so that evolution of who you are, you weren't supposed to stay that way. You weren't
Right,
supposed to
right.
stay stuck.
And sometimes we allow for people outside, meaning not us, to bring darkness onto those areas of our lives. Sometimes you really changed. Yeah. You're not the same person. No, but instead we like, well, no, I'm still the same old me. You know, you shouldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not. And if when we have our experiences, inevitably they're going to have an impact. That impact is going to frame how we think. That changes us. It's going to frame what we do. That changes us. And learning to embrace change. We always hear that, change is hard. Sometimes, but not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Change is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And we can either go with it and accept that we are changing, or we can try to fight it and change and not really enjoy the full benefit of it. We we're supposed to get, if we are blessed to become older, we should become wiser. You know, we can't do the same things at our age. I'm 51, as we could when we were in our 20s or even 30s. We don't have the same kind of patience. So there are things that we won't put up with that we used to. And it's just like our relationships with our relationship, external relationships, our relationship with God. It God has to grow.
Mm-hmm.
There's you should not be the same when you come into a life of Christianity as you are 10 years down the line. That means you're doing a disservice to yourself. I'm not the same as the person that you met 20 something years ago, but you aren't either, but we're better.
Yeah.
And I know I've had some tough experiences, downright impossible to get through on my own, but it made me better. It made me stronger, but it also softened me up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy with that. And I think that's what we have to encourage other women
Mm-hmm.
to be okay with the change. I was talking to a friend of mine on the retreat. She was saying how she was she was a little sad and discouraged because she's going through menopause and she's gained a little weight. Now, this woman has the best arms I have ever seen and the best back. You all know what I'm talking about, the muscles that I have ever seen. So, um, and it was bothering her. And my message to her was, when you're ready to do something about it, you will. When you figure out how your hormones are playing a role in this, you will. Don't give up on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're just as beautiful now. Work on that. Let that be your base. And then when you recognize that you're beautiful, you'll want to accentuate and you'll go back to running 8 miles to church. So, but it's starting with accepting who we are in the moment and moving forward in grace.
So to that end, I just have two of the specific questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
Um, and then we'll start to wrap it up here. Um, how do you balance softness and strength in your personal life? I see you chuckling. I'm gonna repeat that
Uh,
because I got caught in that softness. So, how do you balance softness and strength in your personal life?
um, I balance softness and strength by when I'm a little too hard, it wears me out.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't, and praying about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I won't say that I have it together because I don't. I go hard, but if I find myself really tired, then I'm going too hard. Um, if if I don't see the impact that I was anticipating, then I regroup. I'm learning to be softer in my marriage. I'm learning to sit and be quiet. I'm listening to the people that I have around me that I trust, to tell me when I'm going too far left or too far right. But most of the time, I am taking on a demeanor of softness. And then when things get difficult, that strength naturally comes for me. I don't have to find it, it's always there. So I have to be intentional about being soft, being encouraging. I'm already soft spoken, I'm already laid back. So leaning more into those attributes about myself and uh, learning when I don't have to pick something up,
Mm-hmm.
just letting it, it's somebody else's weight to carry. So carry it. Learning that I don't have to be in the space and not cry. Now that's been going on for a few years. I'll cry in a minute. Like, what you crying? I had a friend ask me, what you crying for? Well, I don't know, but so I don't know if that really answered your question, but that's how I'm working with it right now.
Yeah, it answers the question, because you're talking about how you're balancing it, and it sounds like a message that I've been telling people, uh, you know, continuously, that we have to be intentional about it. Because I think being a Black woman in America requires you to adopt bit of strength. We show up with this harshness sometimes, or I'm going to do it, or I can do it all, and sometimes we don't have a choice because
Right.
the people who are supposed to be there helping us and doing it with us, they're not there, and so we
Mhm.
have to take it all on, and we are doing it all, but then because we're doing that and because we're taking it all on, we forget that what softness feels like, you
Right.
know. And so that we have to go and we have to be intentional about finding that
Mhm.
softness again, you know, so that intentionality as it relates to, finding the softness, finding ways to be soft, finding ways to step back when you know you are feeling burnt out, and ideally, hopefully we don't have to get to the point where we're burnt out, or
Mhm.
that we are that the emotional weight that we are carrying is so heavy, and hopefully
Mhm.
we don't have to feel that way. But when we do, being able to step back and say,
Mhm.
you know what, this is what this feels like for me, so I need to do some self-care and I need to take care of myself. And if that means, you know um letting go of some of the roles, right?
That's
And some
right.
of the responsibilities, putting it back on maybe sometimes some of those people who should be carrying that weight themselves,
Mhm.
and not trying to be everything for everybody,
Mhm.
um, and putting, but really just putting the onus back on others because we we take on, because sometimes as
Too much.
say if it ain't, we take on too much, and then we also adopt the mindset that if it's not gonna get done right unless I do,
Right.
right?
That's an excellent point. Softness is letting somebody else do the job the way that they're going to do it. Softness is allowing somebody to open the door for you and saying thank you.
Mm-hmm,
Softness is choosing to be silent when you know you want to say something and just letting your silence speak for itself. You
mm-hmm,
know, softness is self-care, putting on your favorite outfit, wearing a dress when you're used to wearing pants, um, telling somebody you got it.
mm-hmm,
You know they wrong as two left shoes. You got it.
mm-hmm,
Because again, it's not your problem to solve. Softness is walking away when you want to throw hands physically and verbally.
mm-hmm,
It's like, mm-mm, it's not work. Softness is knowing what your value is and saying, I don't have the emotional currency to give to you right now. And that's for anybody, kids, husband, friends, be like, I love you, but I don't have the emotional currency to give to you right now.
mm-hmm,
Check with me tomorrow or next week, but not today.
mm-hmm,
And just being vulnerable like that. Softness is being vulnerable. And
mm-hmm,
I've noticed Sharita said that she's too soft now.
mm-hmm,
You can find balance. Be tough when you have to be. That's the uncomfortable part. Being tough when you have to be, especially when you're talking about being tough with people you love, saying no when when you really want to say yes, and letting God figure it out. Because you can be soft and vulnerable in that. We can't do it. We can't do it by ourselves.
mm-hmm. Yeah, Sharita was our speaker last month,
No,
and
I'm
she
sorry I missed it.
and she had a major loss. Her husband passed, and so that has it's rocked her world. And so the theme of last month was finding joy, so she's working her way back to finding joy, but she's working, and part of that is letting go of her own guilt that she has. So Sharita, I know you feel like you're way too soft now, but maybe this is your soft period.
It's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing yourself to grieve. You'll find your balance again, but it's not old enough for you to. I think I understand the want to find that balance, absolutely. But if you can't physically or mentally find it, give yourself grace.
Hmm. Yeah. Tiffany says it's a journey. Take it day by day. Exactly. Take it day by day.
Yes, ma'am.
So find and pray. So Rita said and pray.
And pray.
Yep. And pray. Yeah. So last question.
Okay.
Um, what message would you give to the woman who feels disconnected from her value?
Go somewhere and sit all the way down. Literally, just stop and go be to yourself. If it's going away overnight at a hotel, some of us don't have the luxury to just like go because we have too much to do, but get a hotel for the night or just lock yourself in your room and just sit in complete quiet. If you're anything like me, I like to sit in the dark. I am not strange. I just like the peace of the dark and reconnect with yourself before you add music, before you add light, before you add anything. Sit in the dark and have a conversation with you and start that conversation by greeting yourself and saying, I've done too much. I'm doing too much. I'm tired. And everything I'm doing is falling apart, if that's your story. And then you say to yourself, but did I do my best? I've said that a few times, but did I do my best? If you can say yes, then whatever that is you're thinking about, let it go. You know, I did my best with these kids. I did my best in my marriage. I did my best at my job. Be okay with doing your best, not being perfect, but doing your best. Reevaluating what's important to you. Is your peace more important or being around people or being socializing? If you're socializing with folks that don't bring you peace, which one is more important? Are you healthy? Somebody, I said, having healthy routines. Absolutely. How can you change that? But I start the way I connect my value is I have those personal conversations with myself. And then I go from there. Like I tell myself every Monday morning, you're going to do something to exercise this week. I don't do any formal exercise, but I get out and I walk the dog. I count it all joy. I was doing some housework. That's exercise. I count it all joy. So I do the best that I can. And that's where the foundation of my value comes from. I stop trying to live up to other people's expectation and I figure out what's important to me. And then I go out from there.
Sandra says she was in agreement with you, so she said yes. She said it's a healthy routine to ask yourself, what do I enjoy? Who do I enjoy doing it with? Also, I have adapted whatever is good for you for your soul to that. So doing whatever's good for your soul. One of the things that I have really learned to do is, to do a reset similar to what you were saying. Everything that we get energy from everywhere, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The ground, the dirt, the TV, even when it's off, electricity. We're getting energy from all of that. And sometimes that energy that we're taking in is not good. So the idea of that you said of, going and maybe locking yourself in a room or sitting someplace, finding you a quiet space where you are not being bothered, and just allowing yourself to reflect, asking yourself several questions, about yourself, and really kind of exploring who you are. One of the things that I really encourage people to do is I love mirror work. So mirror work is really good for that self reflection, and really good for reconnecting with yourself and who you are. And so I really like that work because it allows you to tune in. You're asking yourself several questions, and also acknowledging, what are you proud of yourself for? You know, what makes you proud about who you are? And then it also helps you to figure out, what are my next steps?
Right.
What commitments am I going to make to myself?
Yeah.
So I really love mirror work because of that. It does that. And so I encourage people, when you can, to just, either, like you said, get in a quiet space and sit, with yourself and ask those questions. But also, if you can, explore some mirror work. It's
Yeah.
really.
And I would add to that, figuring out where your peace comes from.
Mm-hmm.
What 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 brings you peace? Before we started, I was telling you, trying to do that reset. I realized that being in my house brings me peace. I like my house.
Mm-hmm.
You know that I'm not the most social person in the world. And so, and yes, I am still a very good social worker, ladies, and darn good therapist. But but my house brings me peace. So working to make that an environment that I enjoy being in is part of what I value. So just even in identifying that, where does the peace come from? What it should come from inside, but it doesn't always start there. So how do you create an environment of peace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I thank you. I thank you so much for our conversation for today.
Thank you.
Um, we went over just a little bit, but
Yes.
I still want to give people an opportunity to reflect and journal, because this is the time you've made for yourself. And I feel like if you get off and you get up right away, then you're going to miss this opportunity. So I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to, say, I'm going to play one song and use that song to maybe, write some notes from today, maybe journal for yourself for just a few moments, because this is still your time you've set aside for yourself to pour into yourself. So use this time to really allow yourself to reflect upon what you want to take away from today's conversation. So I'm going to play a song, and then we'll have some closing affirmation and closing notes, and then we'll wrap it up. So here's a little song. If you don't have your journal, go ahead and grab it real quick and a pen, and maybe spend a couple of minutes journaling. Like an empty bottle takes the rain, and he, he, and take my past and take my sin, like an empty shell takes the wind, And tell me something less. Because something, tell me something less. Because something, Lord, you're the only one that can do it for me. We need so please heal. Restoration right now. Okay, so I'm just going to leave us with a few final thoughts, a few final words. So, um, one of the big takeaways that I am encouraging us to, walk with is worthiness should not be measured in titles, comparison, or your trauma. You are more than the sum of any of those things. Look at your attributes, eliminate the negative self talk, and allow yourself an opportunity to just reconnect with your essence of who you are. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tasha, for joining me today. There are a few comments here in the chat where this is a conversation that really resonated with some of our, participants, the people who joined in. They appreciated the spiritual aspect that you brought to it. And, this is perfect for them today. The closing affirmation for today is I return to myself again and again with love, with softness, and without apology. I'll say it again. I return to myself again and again with love, with softness, and without apology. Wholeness is never something that you had to chase. It is always lived within you. May tonight be your gentle return to yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Tasha. Thank you, everyone who
Thank
attended.
you.
Um, we appreciate your, all of your insights. You dropped some nuggets here, and so that is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yes. Good night, everyone. Hopefully, we'll see you next time. If you are in the area, I am hosting a sound healing on Tuesday. So if you're able to join, make sure you get registered for our sound healing and come and join us. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.